You're listening to a Galactic Network podcast.
The Podcast of Terror is a show with adult themes, run by adults, for adults. Please do not have your children listen to this show. It might be beneficial to them in the long run, but please wait until they are older. This is one of those things. It's like when you laugh when you're playing bingo and 069 comes up and you have a chuckle and your kitty says, Mommy, why are you laughing at 069? And the mommy says, when you're older. It's one of those kinds of things. Mommy, can I listen to Podcast of Terror? Sure. When you're older. This is a show with adult themes and some childish behavior. A lot of dick jokes. So please. If you want to avoid the swearing, if you want to avoid spoilers for your favorite horror movies, and if you want to avoid really, really lame, petty dick jokes, do not listen to this show. It is not for you.
Corey, how often do you wear a shirt?
Not as often as you would think.
Yeah, it's always nice to cover up your nipples, and maybe your neighbors are complaining because they're hairy. I know you wear shirts when we do these shows. That's about it, from what I understand.
It's more that I just give off a glare that blinds drivers by.
It is hot in California, so I assume that you sweat. There's a slight sheen to you, and the California sun just...
I don't even sheen. I Estevez.
That is... If you do not want to Estevez in public... We have two places in which you can go. We got 2 coupon codes to make your life a little cheaper. You can go visit frequent guest and friend of the show, Matt Vincent, his website, thehate.com. That's the HVIII.com. Use the coupon code HBG15 for 50% off your order. Maybe you hate him. I don't know. He's kind of a likable guy. But if you hate him and you want to go spend your money somewhere else, we got this other place. Go to statusfearmerch.com. Another sponsor of the show, friend of the show. He does all our artwork. He's a really nice guy. He does all the art for my band, except for the stuff that Corey's wife draws. Head over to statusfearmerch.com. Use the coupon code TERROR. Get you a little nice discount there. Welcome to episode 105 of the Podcast of Terror, production of the Galactic Network. I'm your host, Matt Stein. With me, as always, is Corey. I don't know.
It's called Masturbating Scott.
It's called. Hey, man, you said it, not me.
I did,
but thank you for saying it.
And likewise, I'm doing this for myself too, so that's fine.
Boom, boom, shadow rim shot there. Our guest this week is a returning guest. He's one of the owners of Hate Brand Goods, owner of Throw Bros, which I like that name. Real bro name there, bro. He's one of the hosts of Camo and Hooks, and he's a fucking author now. Mike Beech.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me back. Much appreciated.
Yeah. I don't know. Start at the top. Everyone who listens to this podcast knows Hate Brand Goods. If you don't, get woke. Why don't you
get out of here?
Talk about your podcast and your book now, which I'm guessing is some sort of deep intellectual manual on physics.
I prefer treatise. Good.
Quiet.
Yeah. Real quick here, the keyboard clacking. Look, man, everybody that listens to your podcast knows the story on Hate Brand Goods, and we appreciate all the love you guys show us. We appreciate, we're glad to be associated with you guys. It's a point of pride for us. And Hate Brand Goods, we are actually gearing up this week to release. The lies. We are releasing something that we have in a friendly way called the Ghost line. It's a lot of like same color on same color stuff. That's like kind of redesigns of stuff we've been doing. So we're really, really stoked about that. It's t-shirts and hoodies. It is hoodie weather in some parts of the country. Apparently where you live, the temperature is below 80.
It's 40
So we have heard that some people enjoy a hoodie. Matt and I live in Austin, Texas, and Baton Rouge, respectively. So we wear hoodies for Instagram and stuff. I mean, there's like 2 weeks in the year where we legitimately I could use something a little thicker on my arms. So yeah, we're really stoked about that stuff. Along with that, like you mentioned, the one of the things that we're dropping at thehate.com is my book. My book. I love saying that. This is actually it's M apostrophe book from now. My book. So this the book is called Heavy Light. It's Heavy Light, a periodized throwing for the Highland Games. So that's a lot of weightlifting and throwing nerd stuff in there. Basically, what it is, it's a way, if you're getting into the Highland Games, it's kind of a technical manual for you to, what the hell do I do with all these weird events all the time? How do I do this all year? If you're new, intermediate, or trying to be a pro at it like Matt, the guide. This is the way that I've dealt with coaching athletes. This is kind of a compendium. Ooh, man, treatise and compendium. Woo, fucking killing it. So it's more of a compendium of what I've done with 40 or 50 athletes over a couple of years to train them to bring them to the Highland Games. So that's what's going on there. Throw Bros is a gear and supply company for Highland Games and throwing athletes. It's kind of steadily expanding into more and more stuff. So check that out at throwbros.com. And what else? Camo and Hooks podcast. Yeah, that is kind of a side project with a buddy of mine because I've recently gotten into hunting and fishing. And if you don't put it on the internet, it didn't happen, right? So I have to find a way to document that I am somehow learning to hunt and fish. So it's kind of a fun time. We're both pretty much rookies at it. And we go through all of our stupid mess ups and let our audience just beat us to shit about all the stuff we're doing wrong. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. So thanks for having me, guys. I just checked the clock. We're out of time for me talking about myself. So.
That's it. So we're working with a compressed timeline, and Mike took it all up. We're not even going to get to talk about the movie.
Sorry, guys. There's only so many gigabytes of memory that this podcast can take.
So
I used them up.
I thought it was funny that you mentioned that your listeners like tell you what you do wrong, and I never thought about that because there are probably a shit ton of people who know more about fishing and hunting than you.
My mom.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, Corey's mom.
Like all of them.
An avid baiter. She likes to bait the animals.
So would you say that she is a
masturbator?
Would you say that she's a master?
She is a master at baiting.
Thanks for.
She's more of a sensei,
that up
but
for
that's
me.
fine. Yeah.
But so I guess we kind of lucked out because reviewing horror movies is very it's a big gray area. So no one can really tell us what we're doing is wrong, but they do it anyways.
They do.
So,
Right.
Thanks, internet.
Hey, you know what you did wrong by giving your opinion?
Yeah, right. I thought this was fucking America.
I went to Catholic school. That is actually something that literally happens there all the goddamn time. You take religion class, and they're like, okay, so tell us your opinions about this passage from the Bible. I'm like, I think this is pure shit. You're wrong. You're always wrong. Why are you at this school? Because my mom pays tuition.
10 Hail Marys.
Yep. 10 Hail Marys, and then everyone will forgive you.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that we do on the show, which I enjoy, is we do a reverse Q&A where we, like usually, the Q&A is where you put it out to you let the audience ask you questions. We did a whole podcast where we asked a series of questions and we got the answers back from the people listening. And we haven't done, it's the first one and it just reminds me, that's probably what we'll record this next week. We haven't recorded the answers back yet and it's fantastic. Like I almost wish people were more abusive for entertainment value. Everybody was very nice and cordial, but I wish they were more abusive. I wish they were calling us cunts the entire time. It would have been great.
Do you want me to?
Hey, if you want to shoot an email over, just call me a cunt.
What's the email address?
camoandhooks@gmail.com.
I do want to point out that my favorite sexual position is reverse Q&A.
Now, are you the Q or are you the A in that position?
Sometimes it just depends. When I would need something a little bit thicker on my arms, that's when I see my wife. And so
callback joke. You guys do callback jokes? I didn't know. I didn't know we had a callback joke.
That's all this podcast is one big callback joke.
You're good. I'm going to keep meticulous notes. Fucking meticulous, too. Look at me. God damn it.
That's the first word I've known. So
when you were talking about you had a book coming out, I thought it was going to be your secretary's tell-all about you. That's what I was waiting for.
He has a secretary?
God, can people have secretaries still? Is that still a thing?
Yeah, people can still have secretaries. I think the ones who have secretaries are just dumb and don't know how to use what they have available.
Right. Or maybe they're really smart and they don't want to do anything.
Yeah, well, you hire people to do the things so you can put yourself into the stuff that is more valuable as far as your time. You hire out. The secretaries are incredibly wonderful people to have work with you. I don't know if they're called secretaries anymore, but back in my day,
administrative assistant.
Yeah,
back in Harvey Weinstein's day, you had a secretary, literally. But no, that's exactly it. You get to a point in your business, you always hire people to fill the needs so that you can concentrate on the stuff that your most focus should be landing on. So, yeah,
like reverse Q&A. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, Jenny, can you come in here and tell me if I'm supposed to be the Q or the A in this?
I got nothing.
There's got to be a treatise or a compendium somewhere that'll show you. Come on.
I really have to Google these words now.
Yeah, it's C-U-M.
What the fuck was I listening for? I was talking to some friends that we got a 4K TV finally, and I'm like, what movies are good to watch in 4K? And I said something about Transformers and pornography. And I'm like, I bet there is a 4K Transformer pornography out there. And there is.
Oh, God.
Yep.
What is that called? Rule 34 or something like that on the internet, where if like you can imagine it, or if you say it out loud, a porn is either made about it or it is currently being made.
They're making a Rick and Morty porn parody.
Oh, they have. It's existed for a while. Dan Harmon's talked about it.
Dick and Morty?
You pervert. That thing exists at all.
I thought some big porn company was just restarting to, or they're releasing it, or it's called Dick and Morty, and I don't know. The internet is a deep, dark hole, like a vagina.
Yeah. And everybody's in it.
Yep.
Like your vagina.
Yes.
Hey.
For those listening, a compendium is a collection of concise but detailed information about a particular subject, especially in a book or other publication.
I fucking nailed it, because that's what my book is, 100%.
Yeah,
and it is.
We'll find out.
There are dozens of people worldwide that care about Highland Games Compendium. So, I mean, next time you guys talk to me, might be from my boat.
Yes, I hope so. I hope you're on a fucking yacht in the middle of the ocean the next time we do this.
Mm-hmm.
International waters. So
no rules out there.
What you're doing to your secretary will never come out.
That's right. You can flat out murder people in international waters.
It's true.
For what? Did it, didn't he?
I got kind of assumed accused of killing my wife on Friday.
But
you
should probably tell
Okay, Corey, hey, first question. Did you?
People are still waiting for proof of life.
How's that a point for contention? Hey, did you kill your wife?
Yeah, so I went to a movie on Friday. I went to see the new Thor, and I get a call from my wife who's in Michigan. She was out there on a trip, and she's like, hey, so is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. Why? What's up? And she says, well, I just got some really weird texts from the neighbors across the street saying that you left the house, and all of a sudden these cops showed up and started banging on the door and said there was some sort of domestic disturbance, and now they don't know what to think.
Nice.
And so the cops were all like, yeah, there was some disturbance here. We're coming to check out. And they're like, well, we just saw Corey leave. We didn't see Aaron at all. Okay, now we're a little weirded out. We have no idea.
Okay, you know what? Here's what you need to take away from this, Corey, and this might be a troublesome thing for you, is that something about you, man, made those people, their first thought be that you killed
their first thought was definitely to defend me. Both neighbors come over to me and they're like, we said to the cops, hey, these people are pretty chill. We don't think they're doing anything wrong. But then the first thing you think is like, yeah, that guy's pretty chill, but where the fuck is his wife?
Right. It's always the nice chill ones, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's weird that it wasn't that much of a jump for them to be like, yeah, maybe he murdered her. Maybe you put out a really murdery vibe. Have you ever considered that?
Quiet, keeps to himself, always talks about how the pretty need to die first. It's just, that's Corey's nature. That's who he is. I also just posted about movies. Yeah. I posted just recently that I had just snaked our drain as well. I'm like, yeah, because you got to really work to get the body all the way down there, no matter how much.
They don't liquefy, no matter what people say.
No, exactly. You pretty much should just eat it. And today I'm making
this podcast thing's permanent.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever. I'm pretty sure I've talked
None of this will hold up in court. None of you even really know my name, so that's fine.
I do.
Perfect.
You do.
If anyone wants to pay me, I'll write a tell-all, including Corey's real name.
Oh, Corey has a nom de pod. Is that what I'm hearing?
Come on.
A nom de cast, I guess it would be.
Well,
it's
when
a play on nom de plume, Matt.
Yeah, Nom de Plume is the villain of a comic book that I came up with when I was in 5th grade. So that I recognize where you're going.
That is so great. Did you guys ever do the thing when you were young? Like you would have like like you would draw like imaginary comic book characters, superheroes and stuff like that. Did you ever have a time like did you ever come up with one and then just forget about it, and then you'd see a decade later in a real comic book or a real piece of media, somebody did it? Have you ever had that happen before? Like I swear I
came up with one called Super.
Yeah, I've talked to tons of people. Oh man, just missed the mark on that one.
Damn.
I've been reading a lot of Nietzsche. I did. I think I did it like 2 times. I think there was a Marvel comic guy named like Black Hawk or something like that, and he was or Nighthawk.
Yeah.
And I legitimately came up with almost the exact same character, the same name. And then another time, I used to play pretend professional wrestling on my trampoline. I was weird kid, and
this was last week
in my mind. Yeah, no, this was 2007, guys, a long time ago. And I imagined that Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake became a tag team, and I thought that'd be awesome if they became a tag team. And then, like a month later, they became a tag team because Macho Man Randy Savage had gone heel. I was like, I'm telling you, I might have some sort of talent for this. It's a good thing I don't bet sports because I'd be like Biff.
You mean a rapist?
Oh,
yes. Oh. How quickly I said yes, by the way. I'm here I'm accusing Corey of having a murdery vibe, and I'm immediately copping to rape.
Hey, I respect my victims, okay? No means no until the stabbing is done.
Yes, exactly. You're a gentleman and a scholar, and also a murderer.
Yeah.
Are we done implicating each other of weird crimes that may or may not come back to haunt us?
You're coming out pretty
podcasts
clean
are all
right
now.
That's why I'm quiet. You don't need to know what's in my closet. Although the guys in my band have started calling me Weinstein because I give off a weird, creepy rape vibe.
Oh, no.
And my last name's Stein.
Yeah, a little.
You're far closer to a Spacey.
But, well, okay. It's the beard, the hair, being fat, and because my last name is Stein.
That's true.
That's how I get the name Harvey.
It's like 4 strikes right there. And also, I rape a lot of women. also, I jack off in potted plants.
Never
Immaterial, I
on
feel
size.
like. But
We are so going to get great reviews from this.
Well,
iTunes is just going to be like, I don't even want them anymore. Just fuck these guys.
We're going to get voted off the iTunes island.
Yeah, we've never dropped a podcast before, but you guys, you're special.
Yeah, well.
This next week's guest, Milo Yiannopoulos.
Yeah. We should probably let our guests in the coming weeks know that we may not have a show anymore because we may get kicked off the internet.
That'd be impressive. Get kicked off the internet. I mean, look, man, Google Play will take anybody. You guys are good.
We are a star for content.
Oh, boy.
Maybe Microsoft will start a podcasting app and then it'll
take a shit.
That'll be the haven.
Get all 26 of those listeners.
Well, that's 19 more than we have currently.
Yeah, it only works on Zune, guys.
Can you still buy a Zune?
You cannot. You can still buy used ones, but there are no new ones as of like a few years ago. They cut the Zune.
But never put it past Microsoft because they announced recently that they completely stopped support for the Windows phone systems. And then there's a brand new Windows phone that's out. And it's like, what the fuck? What are you doing?
Yeah, have you ever used a Windows phone?
No.
Oh, it's either like my buddy of mine had one, and like I would mess around with it. I had an old one in like 2004 or something like that, when like there was like PDA phones. And like,
those I had.
Yeah, it's just like they're either really bad or or sad. Like there was a pretty good like a era of Windows phone, like the Windows 8 era, like they had decent ones, and then like, but you would use it and be like, it's just like, this is sad. Like it's like a good phone, but like not quite as much stuff to do. It's like good job, like best bronze medal finisher ever, but like it was just sad.
My old Windows 6.5 phone with the slide out keyboard.
Oh, that is boss right there.
The
That is
physical,
fantastic.
The 3-inch screen diagonal.
I had the one that was like this. It was like an ice cream sandwich thick, and it had a stylus.
Yep. Oh yeah, these have
And
styluses.
it still had the flip up. Yeah, styli.
Styli. That's good that we gave the first impersonation of it, because then Matt doesn't have to look it up.
I hate you guys so much right now. I had one of the phones that would slide 2 ways, so you could slide it up to get the keyboard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That
Those are called like a kick or something like that.
it wasn't the
those
kick.
called?
It was some like
The Sidekick
no, the sidekick was the one that like spun open.
spun open. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It had like suicide doors, but it was a cell phone.
Yeah, that was what
Suicide
and
doors.
Twitter on the map. It was everybody had the Sidekick. It was the Ashton Kutcher Paris Hilton phone.
That's right.
So it makes your tits real veiny.
Right. Remember when they were still alive? Ashton Kutcher and Paris Hilton.
What the fuck?
I'm not convinced they're not the same person.
It didn't. Well, Ashton got shit because he like support someone who is being his name's been brought out in the recent rape allegation.
Mila Kunis?
Did I miss?
Was
something?
it?
I'm kidding.
Oh.
No, I think Danny Masterson from That 70s Show is in some shit.
Well, he's a fucking Scientologist. That guy's a certified nutshot.
And isn't everybody implicated in sexual harassment or rape now? Isn't like everybody's got at least one count right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I thought
As long as we're all
he's
equal.
voiced support for someone that was being pointed the finger at, and people got pissed about it. Yeah,
I mean,
it's
not-
fucked up.
There's nothing that we're going to be able to say on this or probably any podcast that's going to make a lot of headway on this conversation. We'll talk shit, we'll joke around, but this obviously sucks.
Oh, yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not a great time
Yeah, it's fucked up.
to have a realization that a lot of people that you've grown up liking are dirty, awful people.
Yeah. Look, man, power does weird things, man. Like I think that's a lot of what you're seeing in the Hollywood dynamic is that power just. I mean, there's the absolute power corrupts absolutely, and I think there's Harvey Weinstein's like the poster child, right? Mm-hmm. The clear picture that the amount of power and influence that he had create really bad situations for a lot of people
And exerted, yeah,
and with zero consequence. Yeah, zero consequence, and I think the Hollywood power dynamic is one that it's weird because Hollywood and the film industry in general, entertainment is a fundamentally silly thing. It's a fundamentally silly thing. It's play pretend as an industry. And we all know that. So I think that's why it's going to take longer for those things to kind of trickle out. Like for somebody saying like, I was legitimately like harassed and intimidated and it could have cost me my job. Like it's going to take longer for that to take in a silly and what's fundamentally a silly industry and something that we use for entertainment and that we don't really see the real side of. Like it literally the whole idea of Hollywood and entertainment industry is to put out a product that's a face of all the people that are in it. Like, there's literally like you're constantly watching a production piece and they don't want you to see the inner workings. But for that fundamentally kind of silly industry, for people to say like that, that many negative experiences are happening behind closed doors. Yeah, it's going to take longer because we're kind of almost ingrained to believe in that idea that like it's almost like a trope, that idea that the actress that'll do whatever it takes, or the skeezy producer that will take advantage. Like there's almost like a tacit acceptance of that.
It's been
now it's just so in our face.
Yeah, it's been the theme of movies for years. It's been the theme of I think a whole segment of porn is that
Correct.
Casting couch.
It was the theme.
Yeah, yeah.
A Poison music video in the 80s. It was the Fallen Angel video.
That's right.
Or Turn the Page by Metallica. It's like all these things. We've known it forever. It's not surprising. It's surprising how many people just let it happen. And that's it's not even like I'm pissed at Harvey Weinstein, of course, because fuck that guy. But I'm probably even more pissed of all the people who were seemingly, good people, allies, and everything else that just kind of like went, yeah, we knew that was going on. The fuck, you knew that was going on?
Yeah.
Like you are equally powerful to this guy. How could you let that continue to happen? That is just insane to me.
And you're exactly right. And that's where a greed and power come into it, man. There's a lot of greed and power that comes into that people of equal standing or men also in the industry, like, I don't want to lose my job, or I don't want to lose my chance at this project. And that's sick. It's insane. But also, like, if you want to find a positive spin, the positive spin is that we're reaching a cultural nexus, a point where all these women, these actresses, young men, whoever it may be, any of the victims, let's just say, any victim feels more enabled to come out and say something.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks right now. And because you're seeing all the dirty laundry, like, you're seeing everything laid bare. And it makes it dirty, and it's showing you how bad it's always been. But it is a sign of progress that people can actually feel like they can say something now. That's always the whistleblower is always the thing that busts open an industry, right? And this is their version of a whistleblower. This is their dirty secret. This is the thing that the industry has been doing. The film and movie industry has been doing for a long time. It wouldn't shock me if you start seeing it happen in the music industry too. You know how much fucking pay for play with sex and harassment there is in the music industry too?
Oh yeah.
I mean, Matt, you play in a band. How many times have you sucked dick to get a gig? It's just part of the deal.
14.
14 and that's average. You're lucky.
Well, I don't have to suck a ton of dicks because I'm in a shitty band and we play in like dive bars.
And also, it's not always just for the gig.
It's true. Sometimes I'll just suck a dick for fun.
Well, it's like if you're already going, like you're already sucking one dick, and another dude just kind of comes into the room, like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, you just, come on over.
It's a dick sucking party.
Like, yeah, it might not help you, but it's like, I don't want to be rude.
Yeah,
I've already uncorked the bottle and let it breathe. I just figure rounds for everybody.
I want to make a correction of something Corey said, because if I don't, I feel like I may hear about it. Bob Seger wrote "Turn the Page."
Yeah, but I was talking about the Metallica music video.
Oh, I thought you were okay. I just wanted to make
sure.
Don't
school me on Bob Seger. My uncle sang on Bob Seger's back in '76 album.
I didn't know that. I didn't think you didn't know that. I just wanted to point out that we did know that, so someone doesn't say, like, "You guys are dumb."
No, absolutely.
Like, you're fucking dumb.
And hey, if you're the guy that was going to go comment about that, you're an asshole.
I completely.
Whoever you are out there,
is the internet.
But we would appreciate the commentary, especially in the terms of an iTunes review. When you can 1 stars and say these fuckers don't know anything about Bob Seger. It's probably true.
It's true. Or you could leave a shitty review on Camo and Hooks.
Yeah.
Call the co-host.
That's really why. That's why it happened.
Something. So about all this rape stuff, I think it's fucked up because one person comes forward, which is awesome, and then more come forward. But then there's always the people that are like, "Ooh, I want my 15 minutes of fame," and will lie about it, digging into it. And I think that's fucked up too, because now you have to like weed through who's telling the truth and who's lying, so you can figure.
But you should always have to weed through who's telling the truth and who's lying. And the problem is that oftentimes when it's the one person who comes out, they're never taken seriously, and so there's no weeding, there's no investigating. Right. They're just like, "Oh, this person's just trying to cash in," and it's like, what is the limit? What is the turnover of like, well, enough people have said it now that we should probably take it seriously. And now we're seeing people lose their positions and lose their jobs. But it's not like one person does it. And if there is one person who's affected, then it should be taken seriously. It's not automatically that person is automatically telling the truth, but it should always be looked at as it's a definite possibility that could be true, and we should fucking do something and find out. And maybe at the end we don't get a definitive answer, but it's not automatically believe the accuser, but it is automatically take the accuser and the accusation seriously. And too often that has been not the case.
I like that a lot, Corey. I've always kind of struggled with that little turn there of like, how do you have an open discourse and how do you not turn away people that are potentially victims while still doing your due diligence? And I like that perspective. Take it seriously. It doesn't mean that you have to automatically believe, but take it seriously, because if you take it seriously, hopefully the truth will bear out.
Yeah.
Right.
And the court of public opinion is never going to get things right. That's why we have a actual court process that we go through for the legalities of all this stuff to investigate and find these things out. And it sucks that I would certainly like to see a change in the law of like a life of how long you're allowed to take your accuser to court. If what's the statute of limitations on murder? I don't believe there is one, and there shouldn't be in rape cases or physical abuse cases either. I think that if it happened, and we should investigate it. And it may be costly, and it may be hard to prove, but it's still, again, something that needs to be looked at, because this is a person who is then going to go on and affect other people's lives if they just get away with it. Who's the next person that gets taken advantage of? Who's the next person who gets hurt? I said something the other day. It's like, I would not necessarily give up on following somebody's film career and stuff like that because they've done something wrong, and then especially if they've done the time and everything, but I wouldn't let them watch my kids. It's like I would take the knowledge of, you do some cool stuff and everything, but stay the fuck away from my wife and my family. No.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm sure a lot of the guys that built the houses we live in probably had criminal records. Does that mean that they're not allowed to do their work? They're not allowed to work? No, it doesn't mean that. And I think any adult can separate the two. I think you should be able to. However, I'm also not going to be mad at somebody that wants to boycott a particular performer or somebody in a certain industry or somebody that does certain work because that particular crime hits them hard or hits them close. Because we're all grown-ups. We get to choose what we're involved with. But it's just, I think most grown-ups, when they're not directly connected to the situation, like, will I go see a Kevin Spacey movie again? Probably. Because that's his craft, that's what he does, and he's making the living whether we're there or not. And I can separate the two. But yeah, like you said, like, am I going to let him hang out with my teenage son?
No. So we, myself and some other guys, including the guys in our band, have talked about this recently because the band Decapitated is being accused of gang raping 2 girls, and which is fucked. And I think it was in California, Corey. So thanks. And like,
we killed the lead singer of who's the Santeria guys.
Bradley Nowell.
Yeah.
But it's like, is it wrong to now listen to Decapitated because of that? Like, the singer from As I Lay Dying tried to hire someone at his gym to murder his wife. Is it bad to now listen to that band? Like, it's is it wrong to go watch Seven? Seven's one of my favorite movies because of what Kevin Spacey did. Right. Can you still go back and enjoy what you enjoyed prior, knowing what you know now? That would be like if Beech was just like, "Ooh, fuck you guys, you cock-sucking homos," and gave us the Freedom Rockets and then fucking noped out of here. Would I still buy all of your shirts?
Fuck you guys, you cock-sucking faggots.
They're the double Freedom Rockets. But you get what I'm saying? Like, would I still be able to support your businesses in the same fashion if you did something like that, or if you tried to kill your wife, or?
And that's it's like degrees of closeness, and like it's just like everything else. There's shades of gray and there's degrees, because if it's the 3 of us and I tell you guys to fuck off and I insult your families, right, of course you're not supporting my businesses or anything I do ever again, because that's personally affected you. And then, but here's the interesting thing: like the Kevin Spacey thing is easier to distance yourself from. The Harvey Weinstein thing, you can say like, well, it's not like I'm never going to watch a Miramax movie again. Right. But like then you get in these middle, like it's like I'm not boycotting those entire things or whatever. But then you get that middle ground, like you talk about with Decapitated. That's not a huge mega hit, like mega star band. Like that's not like a worldwide success band. So that's one that like local or regional support is going to mean more, and you're automatically closer fan wise to them. As I Lay Dying, a little bit, they're a little on a bigger scale, but like that middle area gets interesting because your support, your dollars do mean more per act in that way. So that's weird to me. I don't have the answer. I just think it's an interesting observation that as it's just like anything else, as it gets closer to you, it matters more. Like your choice you do with your dollars matters more. Mm-hmm.
It's hard when it's one person in a film, then by not supporting that person, you're also not supporting everybody else who made that film and gets residuals Correct. From that film. If it's a whole band, that is a little bit more of a I may not be giving them my money directly, and it may be still that there was the producer and the record company and everything else. But it's really is still sort of supporting this band and I'm not saying that they are guilty or not guilty, but I'm saying that in this situation that would be a thing like, yeah, okay, that might be less of a problem for me. But you're right, Matt. You've listened to them for a long time. Should you not be able to still enjoy the music that you grew up listening to? It's like they just did a Christmas special about Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson never legally convicted of anything, but we all have a lot of questions about Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And yeah, at that point in time, it's like, should we not have that? Should we have stopped supporting it? It's not even going to him anymore. It's going to people who profit off of what he did. It's a weird kind of place, but yeah, do I want to watch the Michael Jackson Christmas special? Probably not, because it looked like shit. I sat through the goddamn David Pumpkins piece of crap, and that was awful too.
Whoa. You take those terrible words about David Pumpkins back.
Did you watch the David Pumpkins animated special?
Yeah, it wasn't that great.
It was awful.
It was about 14 minutes too long, and it was literally one big callback joke. Beech would like it.
Yeah.
I do love a good callback joke. Hey, Matt, if it makes you feel any better about the band Decapitated, remember that.
Did you Google
9 out of 10 people love gang rape.
Oh, god damn.
I'll wait.
Okay. I got nothing.
Also remember that Stryper razed a village in India to the ground once, and so in God we trust.
So no.
We went from gang rape to Stryper in less than 5 seconds.
Every chance I get.
This is pretty good show so far. So now that we're over a half an hour in, for more on this podcast, including show notes, contact information, and subscription links, go to gncast.com/pot. You can check out this on our Slack channel. GNCast, sign up. I don't fucking whatever. Beech, we usually say it like within 3 minutes of starting.
The whole thing was the pitch to get people to sign up to subscribe.
Yep.
And then he just knocked it out of the park with a killer read. just
stopped early. Didn't give a fuck. All right, before we get into the
movie,
movie,
has just been to get Matt back for getting rid of the news segment, which is the one thing I really brought to this show.
I had way more fun, casual conversation about gang rape than talking about news, like forcing conversation about news.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
and we still talked about the news. We talked about stuff in the news.
We did.
Boom.
We did. So before we go get into our movie, we're gonna do our little what you drinking. I'm sure Beech is drinking protein powder because he's a fucking meathead.
Gross. I am finished with a cup of Habit coffee, which is the Hate Brain Goods brand of coffee.
I have.
Because
where do I air agreements about my ceramic cup?
Ooh.
Oh, what happened?
The fucking bottom broke right off.
Oh man.
Yeah, it sucked.
Were you
I was gang raping it, but
Yeah, I was gonna say.
My next question. Yeah.
I fucking poured a cup of coffee in it, and I picked it up, and the bottom fell right out. Yeah.
Have you put it in the dishwasher a ton?
Nope. I've literally used it 3 times.
Just email me. I'll get you another one. Or text me. Why would you email me? I don't know.
I don't know. I already emailed the podcast about you being a cunt, but
yeah, just please email my hunting podcast about all your issues. And
even in your iTunes review.
Yeah, I have a 1-star review about that, and then I'm also just drinking water right now. Sorry, I'm boring, fellas. I'm doing a no booze. I'm doing no booze November right now.
Oh, I think I stopped being drunk at like 10 a.m. It was a rough night, and we were just sitting around watching Stranger Things, and I just got shit hammered. It was
you just gotta ride the wave, man. You just gotta keep drinking. You can't hit that wall.
So I'm drinking
bourbon.
There it is. One of our listeners, actually a fan of your shitty shit and a fan of our shit, our buddy Mason sent me a bottle of his Diablo.
Oh, that's
Shadow
Mason.
bourbon.
I was about to ask, is that Subtle and Distilling? Which one is it?
Diablo Shadow. Just the bourbon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I figured.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one. He sent me a bottle.
Then the beers. Although I do still have like 95 bottles of beer. In my
he
basement.
sent me a
I'm gonna keep cutting you off.
That's
so
all.
every time
Getting
you
low.
start...
Time to go on a run.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm sorry. What were you trying to say?
No, I tried that rye. They have a rye whiskey too, and it was actually I like that better than the Diablo Shadow. Even that was one of the better drinking ones that he sent.
Really? Yeah, he gave me the option, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't drink a ton of bourbon or anything. I'm strictly beer, so I just told him to send me whatever he preferred. So
yeah,
not at all upset. It was super nice of him. Now I got to send
No,
a
that-
beer, but he wants
Yeah,
all IPAs, and it's not IPA season here anymore. So
It's not. Yeah, you're gonna get plenty of expired beer there, buddy. Have fun.
I'll find something for him. It's not like I don't have a couple
Good
bottles in
kid.
my basement I could probably spare. Yeah, I was trying to get my hands on the Tim and Eric wine, and you couldn't.
Oh yes.
Yeah, the sweet berry wine. You couldn't get it outside. Like you couldn't ship it outside of the state of California. So he was like, "Just ship it to my house, and I'll ship it to you." And I'm like, "Well, now this $30 novelty bottle of wine is going to end up costing me $75." I'm like, "This ain't worth it."
So it arrives tomorrow.
Yeah, so I only got one bottle because I wasn't sure. Corey, Lipton iced tea, I assume.
I'm on the iced tea right now. I had a couple glasses of cranberry juice this morning because the wife just came back with. She's not sure if it's strep, but she got really sick in Michigan and had to go to urgent care. So I'm just like, let's vitamin C the fuck out of ourselves right now.
Do you just straight orange juice injections to the pee hole?
As much as possible, but only with extra pulp.
You want to be able to feel it.
Well, you're only constrained by your ambitions there, so keep it flowing.
Jesus Christ. All right. Can't have Beech on anymore. You're just out of control. Let's talk about Young Frankenstein, which miraculously this is the first time I've ever seen this movie.
Wow.
Didn't hate
Wow.
it one bit. I know. I was more of like a Blazing Saddles kind of guy, and
Same year.
Sheriff is a near. Really good movie though. I liked the dry humor and the Igor.
Oh, it's peak Mel Brooks, man. Like it's exactly.
So you're saying
what
Mel
you
Brooks
expect from a
doesn't
Mel
get
Brooks
any
movie.
better than Young Frankenstein? I'm not going to argue with you.
I guess it depends on how you're ranking. I would say Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, probably History of the World, which are all very close in time. I think those all represent a peak.
I forgot about.
Well, they were
I think
Young
those
Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles were both 1974.
That's right. Yeah.
And while Mel Brooks is considered the writer of both, Gene Wilder co-wrote Young Frankenstein, or is listed as one of the co-writers on it, and Richard Pryor is one of the 5 writers listed on Blazing Saddles. What really is the difference for me is, as much as I love Young Frankenstein, and I absolutely do, Blazing Saddles was such a great commentary on racism.
Yes.
That, like, Young Frankenstein is just a really funny throwback tribute to old horror movies. And Blazing Saddles is something else entirely.
Yeah. Blazing Saddles to me, I think, and probably that Richard Pryor influence is what made it so good, is that there is an overarching theme and there is a thread throughout it. The one thing you'll see in Mel Brooks movies, and the other two that I mentioned in that kind of peak conversation, really exemplify this: History of the World Part 2 and Young Frankenstein, is that Mel Brooks is not particularly concerned with narrative thread and direction. He's not. It really is akin to it's a series of scenes. Like, it's almost like you could literally almost make a sort of modern day comparison and say, like the movie Anchorman, same kind of thing. Like, that's a loosely held together movie. It's and all 3 of those, in a sense, they're loosely held together. Everything, and I'm going to come back to this theme a lot. Everything is in service of the joke. Everything is in service of the joke in those movies. Like, everything is a setup for the whole goddamn movie of Young Frankenstein is a setup for a dick joke at the end. The whole movie,
it absolutely is
a setup for a dick joke. And everything that he does in those movies, you see, like, he uses that classic style, that classic horror movie, the classic fades and the wipes and stuff like that to jump between scenes, because that gives you a very convenient break where you don't have to narratively connect everything. And that's not something that's lacking. That is a choice. And he does that so he can contain jokes and move throughout jokes. So you have the ability, just like Spaceballs, how, in our generation, Spaceballs is, you remember Spaceball because of the jokes, the gags, and the segments, the quotabilities. That's what you're looking for in there. He's not looking to wow you with a surprise or a shock ending or character development. That's not the point. This is a collection of scenes that are meant to do a joke. So the Blazing Saddles is unique and amazing, and probably his best work has that overarching theme where it gives you the gags. It's in service of the joke, but there is a theme and there's something you can follow and there's something in the characters you can actually connect to and continue down the narrative thread with.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
look at it. I like that. I like you, Mike.
And it's funny because his humor is so it's so jokey, especially in this. Like there's a part when Frankenstein has pulled up in the train and they do the Chattanooga choo choo lines from the song when he's asking the kid, is this Transylvania station? He's like, oh, track 29. Oh, can I give you a shine?
Yep.
Like, God damn, really? That is so. I mean, it's probably was lame then, but it's like,
see, I didn't
that's
catch
not
it.
a joke.
Exactly.
I did not know what
And that doesn't bother Mel Brooks.
Right.
You're not in your heart 100 years old like me and Corey.
No, and that's
just old, boring men.
Yeah.
You're a young, vibrant fella. That's a future. It's probably why.
I don't have a future. My life is over.
This is it. You're seeing it right here.
Yeah.
And again, like I love that. I love that there's almost a sense, like with a lot of very funny people, that Mel Brooks isn't particularly doing this for us. He thinks that's funny.
Yeah.
That has a purity to it, and that has an alienating factor. I'm sure we've all met people that just don't care for some of those movies. I get it as an alienating factor.
Yeah, they're called communists.
Yeah, people that wait in line for bread. So he's not doing it for us. It's not about broad appeal, even though like these are hugely, these are culturally very accessible jokes that he's making. But it's just it really is like dad jokes. These are dad jokes are probably strongly based in Mel Brooks.
And if you look at what was comedy on TV at this point in time, it was Sonny and Cher Variety Hour, it was Donnie Marie, it was Richard Pryor's comedy show, which was a lot of very vaudevillian kind of comedy. It was jokes and more than it was sketches. I watched some of last night's Saturday Night Live, and every week on Saturday Night Live, there are those sketches that are just flat out bombs, and they don't give a shit that they're bombs because it's this modern comedy sensibility that it doesn't have to be funny. And it's like, we used to play shit to be funny. And that was what comedy was,
right.
Is it was meant to, even if it was the cheapest laugh in the world, it was meant to get somebody to laugh. And Mel Brooks always goes for the laugh, which is not bad at all. But he also is a very classic filmmaker because you look at his stuff and it's indistinguishable from the eras of filmmaking that he's copying. You look
Correct.
at how this is filmed and it plays like it could just sit right next to the original Frankenstein movies. You look at Blazing Saddles, it feels like a Western. It's so eerie how it can be side by side and you can just not be able to distinguish one from the other except for the fact of the Mel Brooks style of comedy in it.
Yeah, and I think I'm not going to say it's underappreciated because there's plenty of people that appreciate it, but I guess for anybody that's not a film buff or thinks about it, like it's easy to lose track of like how good his chops are as a director, like how good his shots are also, like how good he sets up a shot. And that really is on display in Young Frankenstein because it is done in a throwback style and there is some purposefully more primitive ways of doing shots. Things that are tighter, like shots are done tighter than they're comfortable being a lot of times because I think that fits the style of camera. I mean, I'm not enough of a camera buff to be able to tell you, like, going back, if you go back 50 years from when those were shot or more. And a lot of times, like the shakiness of the shots, the incompleteness of the pans and things, like I think some of those things are stylistically done. That's really showing his chops. And just like you said, Blazing Saddles is another great example. Even Spaceballs, like the cinematography and the way those things are shot, the composition of shots a lot of times is reminiscent of a space opera. Like he's got chops and he's able to do that. But what's cool about that also, same thing, and this occurred to me while I was watching some of these in that same thread. His shots are in service of the jokes. There's a purpose behind behind the way that he frames everything. It's not dialogue built inside of a frame makes the joke. The way the actors are blocked, the way they're put in perspective, the way they're put in the frame, the way we move, it's all in service of the joke. And that's a true skill. Like it's the same as saying like you're, like Kurosawa doing it for emotive effect or showing you the relationship between people on camera, which he was great at. But it's taking that same principle and doing it in the service of what's the gag? How do you get to the gag? And that's really cool to see when you watch Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, Matt, I have a very different perspective on this. I saw this movie at a matinee when I was like 6 or 7, the first time, and then I've seen it numerous times over the years. Although this is the first time I think I've watched it beginning to end since probably the mid to late 80s. So it's different for me because there are so many lines that I have memorized from this that I'll make the "put the candle back" joke over and over again with my friends. But to finally see it again, fresh and watch it from beginning credits all the way through to the end of it, made me appreciate some things differently. But how do you see it, being that this was your first time coming in, and it's a film from 1974? This thing is well older than you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to hear Matt's perspective too.
Well, I'm obviously familiar with Gene Wilder's comedy stylings. I knew that I would like this movie, and I really did enjoy it. Parts felt long, but not in like a bad way. Like it probably because I was still drunk. I mean, that didn't exactly help the situation of me trying to digest this movie. But I knew that there was one thing I didn't have to do, and that was try to like piece together what was happening to figure out what the fuck was going on. I could just sit there and I can enjoy it. They dropped some solid jokes here and there. The name thing got to me a lot because I'm basically in the business of people fucking up my last name. It's 5 letters, very easy, yet they still don't know how to say it. So the whole Frankenstein, Frankenstein, yeah. So and then I just changed it to Igor, like shit like that. I thought that was really funny. I totally would watch this movie again. I actually kind of want to under different circumstances, and
I don't know why you'd ever want to watch a movie sober.
Yeah, right.
I can't understand that.
The whole basis of this podcast is me just being drunk while I watch movies. But I feel like you could also, like Corey said, this is the first time he's watched it start to finish in a long time. Like this is not a movie that you need to watch start to finish every time. Like you could watch just the beginning, you could watch the middle, you could watch the end, or you could watch it out of order, and it's still an enjoyable movie. I love dad joke comedy though. Like the Naked Gun movies, I think are great. UHF is a great movie, so it's really right up my alley. The black and white kind of annoyed me because I like color, but that really that's not a valid complaint.
Like, yeah, you don't get to tell him that.
Yeah.
Matt, have you ever seen Dracula Dead and Loving It?
I think bits and pieces. Yeah. That's another one I got.
Because that's Mel Brooks with Leslie Nielsen from the Naked Gun movies. It's one of the I don't know if it's Leslie's last movie, but it's one of his last films, and it's probably the last thing that I remember Mel Brooks really doing. But it's some of the crew from the same actors from the Robin Hood Men in Tights, and Steven Weber's in it. I think is Igor. You might want to check that out just because of
adding it to my list.
Yeah, it's
what is the name of that? I'm sorry to interrupt, but that actress you're talking about, the one from Robin Hood Men in Tights that played Maid Marian, she reminds me. Yeah, she reminds me so much of Madeline Kahn. I've always thought that was like they just found a younger, like more kind of ingenue, like they upgraded. Madeline Kahn can't be replaced. I fucking love her. I think she's fantastic. I'm sure if you guys haven't seen Clue the movie, that movie to me is a masterpiece in fast-paced comedy. And Madeline Kahn is fantastic in that. I think she's great. But whoever that actress is that they found for that, it's like, oh, okay, you just found a younger one with perkier tits.
That is Amy Yazbek. Amy Yazbek was married to John Ritter, who is to me another comedic god and was one of my 2 surrogate TV dads growing up. And yeah, she is fantastic. She's been in a ton of stuff, but definitely known for being the leads in those comedies, and Wings primarily was being the person who came in the later seasons.
That's right.
She's just, and just one of those, like one of my big crushes from TV. She's just wonderful.
Ooh. Oh yeah.
She's in The Mask also. And
Yeah.
on Matlock.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
God, that's probably my parents watched a ton of Matlock. That's probably what I have a memory of her from more than anything else. Probably have some weird connection there. I don't even want to explore too deeply.
Oh shit! I forgot she was in the Problem Child movies too.
Yep, that's probably where she met John. Actually,
Those movies were
that's right.
great.
Oh my god! You know, I've never seen those.
Oh come on! You gotta watch at least the first one.
I know. I'm sorry.
Maybe the second one. I don't know. Either way, they're decent movies.
yeah, she was in House 2.
What the fuck is House 2? What is House 1?
House. Oh man, those are some wacky films. Like they don't necessarily relate to each other very well. But House 1 was William Catt and George Wendt, and it's basically a guy who gets this. I think he is bequeathed this house, and it's not only haunted, but it's like all these weird things in all the different rooms and stuff like that. It's not even scary so much as just like bizarre. But it's kind of was pitched as a horror movie, and then House 2, a completely different group of people come into it. I couldn't tell you a lot about it. The plots don't really fucking matter. It's just that they're one of those things that are in my history.
Yeah, I feel like those movies have been brought up on this show before.
It wouldn't surprise me. They are considered classics for no other reason than the fact that they were just on cable all the goddamn time.
Just repetition did that one. That's a classic makes.
I was explaining to my wife about the new Thor movie, and I said it's a lot like Flash Gordon. She's like, I've never seen Flash Gordon, and I was just pissed at her. I said,
is that why you murdered her?
Call back joke.
We had a disagreement. No, how could you not? I mean, that is so stereotypically 80s. It's a fantastic, they wouldn't let the lead actor have his own voice in it. It was like you had somebody else the whole time. I said, but you watch that movie, if nothing else, because it's Queen playing the entire time for the
just close your eyes, man.
Just listen to it.
Nothing else, just close your eyes for that movie.
It actually lands a better score than Highlander, but goddamn, it is not good, but it's awesome at the same time because we all just watched it.
Correct.
That was the thing.
Yeah, there's something about that availability thing. Like if there's a certain stage or certain like it really stakes its claim on something like the kind of, I don't know, whatever shows were on WGN when I was growing up, when we first had basic cable, like stuff like that. Like there's just something to be said for that exposure bias that happens, that like something becomes a classic. Like the number of people that can like quote and love the movie Air Force One is directly related to the fact that HBO ran that thing 17 times a day in the 90s. Like that's a throwaway action movie. Like, okay, it's got some good lines, whatever. But now everybody, same with Con Air. Con Air was just like, well, it's on TBS. Mm-hmm. Like it's like we're gonna watch the edited version on TBS, and now everybody knows it. There's really a lot to be said for that.
Con Air is always going to be Forrest Gump on a plane to me, but I completely agree. And that's the thing is that these are also not particularly those two movies necessarily, but the kinds of films that were played so much that got their own spoofs because of it. Like the amount of times that Top Gun played and everybody saw Top Gun and knew Top Gun back and forth. It's like, here's our Hot Shots and here's our Hot Shots Part 2. And Mel Brooks doing Robin Hood Men in Tights. It's like everybody knows this film. Everybody knows how bad that Kevin Costner's non-British accent is in it. So it's just like back and forth. So I'm just going to throw it in there. And then here's some points where I'm going to make fun of Home Alone. Why? Because Home Alone's really big right now. So here's a kid screaming his way down a path and like, I got to go home alone now. Just the dumbest line in the world that only makes sense because you've seen Home Alone a billion times.
Correct.
I'm trying to think of what the
so I always think about that too. Like there are so many jokes that are referential, especially like in a genre of music like hip hop. There are oftentimes so many current event references. Like if you go back and listen to popular hip hop from like 10, 12 years ago, you will hear pop culture references and you will struggle to listen. You'll struggle to remember like who was John Bonet? I don't like you forget over time. Like, and I always wonder about that, but that really, I don't know. There's probably like a chicken and egg argument there because those movies probably also get played a lot because they did well commercially, and not always though. I mean, things that are syndicated don't always do well commercially. Sometimes they try to make the money back in syndication. So, yeah, sometimes we have like Flash Gordon. We have classics forced upon us, I guess, is what we're at the whims of. Whoever wants to make money off of something can make us think it's a classic. That's a nice theme for the episode, right? We're all victims of capitalism. Nothing you like is actually good.
So, and I read an article, this has got to be a couple of years ago now, but it was basically how they make you like top 40 music. It has nothing to do with the music actually being good. Huh. It's that they just play it over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and eventually they'll play something worse, and you're just like, that's not that bad because that sucks more. So it's like,
great.
Yeah. So like if you and I were in a room together, someone would be like, wow, that guy's in really good shape because the one next to him's fat. So you know what I mean? It's the same thing.
So you're telling me that's the key to looking yoked. Just find a worse looking friend.
That's why
I
hang out with big ass dudes sometimes.
I remember having that phenomenon kind of being reality for me because I used to work kind of in the corporate world, and there were times where I would sit in offices with people that listened to top 40 radio. They listened to Clear Channel stations that were top 40. And when you're there for 8 hours, you realize like we're really hearing 19 songs over and over again. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you are on a different rotation. You're hearing that, the same songs.
I worked at a radio station, and in that building was the top 40 station.
Oof.
And I worked for the country station, but there was country, talk, AM, top 40, and the rock station. And basically, one of the program directors was explaining to me about how, like, so the new Miley Cyrus song comes out, and you hear it on the radio all the goddamn time because the marketing people behind it have paid to have that song played all the goddamn time. So they're paying to have it played more because whatever the fucking algorithm is that makes people like shitty music. But I don't know. I don't listen to the radio. I don't even.
And it's like 5 producers of all the pop music as well. It's the same few people. And it is what you were talking about earlier, Beech. Bad reputation of one of those producers in the music industry and doing shit and everything. And like all these people coming out. Yeah, I don't ever want to fucking work with that guy. I know exactly what he did. I know he made me feel. So I completely believe Kesha or whoever. That's exactly. But yeah, that's true. And I don't mind pop music because it's pop music. I get sick of it because it does pervade in everything. I like to tell the story about how I stopped listening to Pandora. At first, Pandora was the coolest thing in the world to me because I was discovering all this new music from it. But slowly, every fucking station that I created, no matter what the source was, if it was Frank Sinatra or Beethoven or whatever, suddenly would start playing fucking Red Hot Chili Peppers. I don't understand that. Like, this is not, I've never liked them once. I don't know how they wind up at every fucking station I make. Goddamn Pandora.
Yep. That's just I think we're gonna see that happen time and time again. Like Pandora was definitely groundbreaking, but these become companies that become their own animals. They become these beasts that have to be supported with revenue. And as you grow and grow and grow, you have to find new ways to support that. And, eventually you open the door to, just like Matt was saying at that radio station, you open the door to, well, there are a lot of companies that'll pay a lot of money, maybe not directly, but maybe, they'll bring us advertisers and they'll bring us opportunities and marketing opportunities that if we just get those songs in rotations on more channels, then that's how it happens. It'll probably happen to Spotify at some point. It's going to happen to all of them at some point. I think we're probably in this where we're going to have to consistently switch platforms for entertainment every 10 years. Probably.
Yeah, that's why people chase the new social media all the time. It's like, oh, well, Facebook became too available to my parents, so fuck that. I'm going to go over to Snapchat, and Snapchat's starting to put ads in the Snap, so I'm going to go over to Instagram, or I'm going to go to Tumblr, where it's like, here's where all the porn is. Absolutely. I remember when alternative radio came out, and alternative radio was kind of based off of the stuff that you wouldn't hear unless it was on college radio stations, and you're like, oh, shit, here's stuff that I've never heard of. But then alternative radio became just as commercial as every other fucking thing. Again, the same 19 songs over and over again. And it's like, how did Sheryl Crow wind up on my alternative station? Nothing against Sheryl Crow, but she just doesn't belong in this. And why is there even a mix? This is supposed to be an expression of finding stuff that I wouldn't hear on other stations. No, they've got to be beholden to their shareholders and to their advertisers. And so unless you're the person who actually loves to go out and discover new music on your own by just buying random albums and picking it up, or you get a great group of people around you that can kind of point each other out to new things, you're kind of stuck in the same boat. I'm 46 now, so all the music I listen to is the same shit I've listened to over the last 30 years, or stuff that's like it. And I've got 5 albums or 5 bands that are in my rotation that I just like, well, this is the week that I'm going to listen to Bare Naked Ladies, and then this is the week that I'm going to listen to Cake, or this is the week that I'm going to listen to MCR. Yeah, that over and over again, that's what happens. But if I was young and still gave a shit, I'd be just bitter and pissed. But that's what YouTube did too.
Yeah. Correct. And going back to the Spotify thing too, I think that's the appeal of something like Spotify, is that few ways I've discovered any new music. Like a company or a service that can do that effectively to somebody that's, again, I'm 38, so they can do that for me. I am interested in finding music. I like to, but again, the opportunities for me to do that are few and far between with the outlets that I have. I think Spotify, to a certain extent, Google Play Music does a decent job of that. I don't know anything about Apple Radio. I don't know if I'm ever going to, but like those services giving you like more of a like in their infancy and even into their childhood, I guess, as they grow, they're much more interested in expanding and getting more artists, more exposure and all that kind of stuff. And like any more artists, with distribution rights that they have with them. So they have an incentive to do that. But at a certain point, the monster catches hold. At a certain point, RCA gets a hold of the grunge movement. Like at some point, it's always going to happen. And that's why we're probably continuing, like we were just saying, you're continually going to be switching platforms to find the next and greatest thing. And like music is more, while like film, it's more democratic. It's more, I guess that's the best way it's more egalitarian than it's ever been in some ways, that we have access to make so many high quality products. I mean, look at the fact that we're sitting here right now talking on what would have 20 years ago been nearly top of the line microphones. We're video chatting with each other in what could be high definition, depending on the platform. Like, we have more access to those sort of things. So it's easier to find that stuff. It's easier to find things that individual people are making, but then we're hitting this point where there's such an ocean of it that it becomes just you can't navigate it anymore. Like
what's the cream that rises to the top of
right. There's a this is the nerdiest possible reference here, and I hope you guys played Metal Gear Solid at some point when you were younger. But in that video game, the whole point of it is through like a super cryptic way of getting through it all. Like the idea is like the idea of the game is there's this huge Illuminati technology-based monster that was created a long time ago by the forefathers of the country, whatever, that is controlling ideas and thought through media, the internet, whatever. And the idea is that it's not just about mind control. It's that if you allow information to flow freely, it becomes such a mess and with no direction, and then everybody has a voice, whether it's right or wrong and out there, that information doesn't mean anything anymore. It's actually a really deep idea that they get into in that. And that's kind of what we're talking about is, when everybody has a voice, it becomes harder to know whose voice is worth listening to because you have to sift through so many. But I would argue I'd rather have it that way than have
not enough
to be the only ones we get here. Yeah, like that's, it used to be, there were 3 channels that you could watch on television. It used to be that there were 3 movie studios or, really 1 or 2 in the early days. So I don't know.
No, that's exactly it, though. There were 3 main channels, and then there was a couple UHF channels if you could get them in. And then if you were lucky, you lived in a town that had a local access channel. And the local access was the alternative to everything else. And it would be 90% religious programs, but you get that one weird Wayne's World-esque type show on a Saturday night, and they would get away with whatever they could, or your local horror TV host that plays the creature features, the monster movies and stuff every week. That's always a very local feeling broadcast, and it felt like you were seeing something that was not supposed to be seen on television. You were getting away with something. It was something that you kind of hid from your parents because they either didn't like you watching that trash or whatever. It was just like, it felt a little bit dangerous and surreal to see that on the same thing that was playing the Dukes of Hazzard and Knight Rider.
Right. Yeah. I mean, those were the first podcasts, man. Yeah. That and illegal radio. Those are the first people that were doing that kind of stuff. And I guess it's like kind of bringing it back full circle. It's interesting to me. Like, I'm not as well versed in Mel Brooks' story. Like, to be perfectly honest, I'm familiar with his work, but I'm not well versed in his story. But it's worth noting that his particular style of filmmaking, and especially something like Young Frankenstein, that's fairly subversive. I mean, in a sense, like it's very harmless and overall, like it's a little raunchy at times. But I mean, in terms of film production, in terms of the types of movies, the fact that he got so much funding, like, maybe not so much or as much as other big studios, but enough to make some decently big movies, that's a pretty subversive film style that he had. And that really catches me when you look at contemporary movies around the time that Mel Brooks made those. Like, I mean, there can be social commentary, there can be satire about current media or about big untouchable things. Like, there can even be inside industry jokes and stuff like that. That's pretty cool, honestly.
Yeah. And movies felt bigger at that point in time. Everything was really, the production was a huge part of making a film. That's why people would go to the movies. There was something different about movies than there was about TV. Now the lines are very blurred, and with digital effects and everything, you can achieve the same thing on a TV budget a lot. But you're absolutely right. It's amazing that they would let that kind of stuff go and say, well, he's making fun of the industry, but maybe we deserve to be made fun of. And he was a trendsetter, because it was not long after that we got the first airplane.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and even little things like fourth wall breaking, like that. Fourth wall breaking is this cliche to us now. Like, it's whatever, it happens. Oh, Deadpool does it. Like, it's just, we accept it as like part of comedy. But the reason there's a term for it is because it's such a strange thing. Like, it's something that, when you learn theater, when you learn how to write, how to perform for theater, you learn that it has to be used so sparingly because it can really spoil the aesthetic. It can spoil, like, it can actually break it. That's why they really call it breaking the fourth wall. Like, it really is. Like, there's a breaking to it that it's hard to repair if you overdo it. And so Mel Brooks' ability to do that and do it seamlessly without apology is, again, a pretty cool thing. Like, it's not something that you got. Like, and it's kind of interesting to watching Young Frankenstein, to watch him doing a tribute to and aping the style of those old classic horror movies, and then intermixing things that are so genre bending and idea bending, like fourth wall breaks, putting those things in there like that. I can only imagine what it must have been like in '74 to see that movie, having been exposed to only kind of standard movie media and maybe some classics and some basic television programming, TV movie stuff like that. And then see things like that, and that feeling that you got from it must have been like people, riding a train for the first time or flying in planes for the first time, like that disconnect from the reality you're used to. And that's probably why it's easy for us to look at a Mel Brooks movie, to look at Young Frankenstein. And when we laugh at those movies, or we notice things about those, we're probably doing them that we chuckle. Like, we're probably breathing through our nose slightly harder than we normally do, that kind of laugh. Yeah. But we're also like realizing, I got that, it's a fourth wall break, or no, that's a reference to blah blah blah. You see all that, but seeing that in real time in '74 when that hadn't been done, that had to be trippy to see that in context. That's the kind of stuff I find interesting. Is like, just like Star Wars. We keep talking Spaceballs. Seeing Star Wars in the theater the first time as an adult, can you just imagine what that did to people? Like, holy shit! Like, that's a spaceship. Like, I find that really interesting, the idea of seeing those things when they first come out.
Well, I will say that there's
what are we seeing?
The fourth wall stuff and everything, especially, is a style that I think existed in comedy, because it seems like I don't remember a lot about them now, but as a kid, I did watch some of the Marx Brothers stuff, and they did similar things. And I was a big fan of Abbott and Costello, and a little bit of Laurel and Hardy, but certainly the Three Stooges. So those styles of comedy kind of go hand in hand with this, but those were purely sort of puerile comedy. And Mel Brooks, I don't think invented any of it, but definitely took it into a serious film progression and was able to do things that they didn't do on those. Like, as intelligent as you would ever say Abbott and Costello was, like, you can't listen to Who's on First and not recognize the brilliance of it. But they weren't doing dangerous things in the way that A Blazing Saddles did.
Yeah, and in feature films.
Right.
in truly feature films. Like these are, things with huge budgets and a lot of people counting on you and to do things that are a little bit risky. I think that's very cool. I also kind of in that same vein, I find myself wondering, what are the things we're seeing now in movies? What are the things, or entertainment in general, visual entertainment? What are we seeing now that somebody 30 years from now will think similarly about? They'll be like, can you imagine what it was like in 2017 to see that? Like to just be like, I've never seen that before and see it. And that it's so hard to do that perspective wise to understand that. I mean, everybody said that Avatar was going to be that. Like, yeah. I don't look back on Avatar now and be like, wow, man, that just changed the way I think about movies. It didn't.
No, The Matrix changed, I think, the way that I saw effects in movies.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And if Avatar did anything, it was supposed to be the next step from that. But I haven't seen Avatar. I could never build up the interest to it. But the last really brave innovation that I think that I noticed, again, a movie that I haven't seen yet, is Boyhood. The one that was filmed the kid in like sort of real time over years of his life. They came back several years later, and you would see him kind of growing up in the film, but nobody knew anything about it until it was actually released. That to me was a pretty big deal, because that is such a huge effort to take and a risk, because who knows how things are going to change for actors and actresses and the director and everybody involved in that the years later that it takes to put so much time into a project, even if it was just in little batches here and there. That's impressive to me. But yeah, most films, like I love the new Thor movie. It was a great comedy. It was an excellent example of Marvel films, but it wasn't brave in any way, shape, or form. It was a tribute to 80s classic sci-fi and updating Thor into a way that his other movies haven't really been able to do to get him an audience. But it just leads into the next Marvel movie.
That's becoming the gripe with Marvel movies now. I mean, and to me, I see it, that where at first that they were unique in their take on superheroes being lighter, cheekier, more fun. They are starting to feel like they are taking edgy road, I guess, when the way they handle it seems edgy, but it's really a safe formula within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're not straying too much from the things that work for them. Yeah. And I think that's becoming the gripe.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that, because what I like about the Marvel movies is that I think that there are the times when they vary a little bit. Winter Soldier stands out to me as something that's very different from the other Marvel films. And I wouldn't mind more of that, but they should be films that are accessible. And having an accessible, enjoyable movie is to me never a failure, but it's just that when you crave something that's going to be a little more brave, then you might look at a Logan, or you might look at a Deadpool, which is accessible but adult. Logan is dark and moody, and again, not seriously straying too far from what the original source material was, being very respectful to the original stuff. But saying, okay, well, we're going to try this. The new Mutants movie that's supposed to be coming out is leaning more towards an actual horror movie, which is what I thought Doctor Strange was supposed to be until it got closer to coming out. And then it just kind of looked like everything else. I don't ever take issue with that at all. I don't see it that it's going to be like the films that people are going to talk about for decades after. The only thing that really is the selling point of the Marvel Universe is that the fact that it's been so consistent. That itself is a huge achievement, to have this many movies, this many actors and characters going across the board, and directors coming in and going out and everything, and having it just be from beginning to end, like all of them are at least okay to very, very good. And you never really have a bad time watching a Marvel film.
Well, and apparently there's an entire team that works behind the scenes, very clearly keeping track of the universe and keeping track of the lore, the relationships, the characters that have been introduced, and how they're going to plan that. Like, there's a plan. Like, this is nice to see. Like, it's nice. Like, as a comic book aficionado, like, I don't, especially most when I was younger, but like seeing those things treated in the same way that the writers of the comics treated them is nice. Like seeing, like realizing that, we are like we're progressively watching the Civil War timeline play out in film, and they're doing it carefully, and they're doing it with progress, and not doing it haphazardly and making it a side note. Like that was a seminal, huge event in the comic books. That was something that everybody spent a lot of time thinking about. I'm glad to see that they've invested that much into it. I like that part. And at the same time, you talked about accessibility. When you have a budget dollars, you unfortunately are kind of stuck making an accessible movie because you need to make your money back.
Yeah. But you can't compare to what Nolan did with his Batman trilogy, and Nolan had Batman in his box, and there was no way for that box to open up and involve a Wonder Woman or a Superman. That's why Bale and him didn't take the road of like, okay, we're going to take this and we're going to roll it out to a Justice League film. It's like, no, we relaunch with a new Batman and that stuff. This stuff exists here and only here, and nothing outside of here, and that's okay. But again, from being a comic book fan, is I'm used to giant shared universes. And then those universes, there are Batman stories that are strictly Batman stories because he works as a detective or he works as a street level crime. And then you put Batman next to Aquaman and it changes the entire dynamic of the character.
Yeah, I agree. And that's DC still struggling to figure that out.
Yeah. I hope they're getting better. I am going to give them the sense that maybe they sound like they are trying to improve. They're trying to learn from the feedback that they've gotten, and we'll see. I'm hopeful.
Speaking of big movie studios and Frankenstein, wasn't there a studio that just recently, like whoever was that released that Tom Cruise mummy movie, I guess, that came out? Was there a studio that Universal got all the rights to, or they started using all the rights, I guess, to make these classic monster movies. So we're going to be seeing a stream of those, aren't we?
Yeah, they've always been the Universal monsters, but the crossover, they've tried a few times. They tried with Van Helsing. The Dracula Untold, it might have been a movie that came out a few years ago, was supposed to be the launch of this new universe thing, but it bombed. So they said, all right, we're going to bank on Tom Cruise and get him to launch it, and we're going to put in this guy as the backbone of it as Dr. Jekyll, but it did terrible, and I don't know what they're going to have to do to make that work. But not everything needs to be a giant crossover franchise, and that's the problem, is that they're trying to make too many of these things happen. It's like with the Marvel universe and the DC universe, it makes sense because that's what all of their source material is. But there aren't tons, going back to the original stories, of crossovers between Dracula and Frankenstein and the werewolf. Honestly, you go back, it's the Abbott and Costello movie that was the first big crossover between them, and they included the classic actors in those roles. So you got a Lon Chaney, and you've got the things that you're used to seeing. That was fantastic. Is that going to translate to today? I don't know. I don't know how exciting Dracula is to a modern audience, and I don't know how exciting the Wolfman is to a modern audience, because it's not like we've ever seen them go away fully, and they're not really horror icons anymore.
And we've subverted those in positive ways, like an American Werewolf in London. Like, you've subverted those archetypal stories in interesting ways already, to where it's hard to backtrack. Like, it's we saw even the Brendan Fraser mummy movies; those are ridiculous, but they were fun and very successful. So we've taken those archetypes have already been done and subverted so much that, like, we kind of have a new cultural understanding. Now, I'm gonna get anthropological here, I guess, or I don't know, biological, I guess. But also, it's worth remembering that a lot of those stories, the Draculas, the werewolf, the mummy, zombies, all these classic horror things, these aren't like complete, like, imagined creations like a lot of Marvel characters are, that are based on certain, like, types of people. Like, these are very fundamentally scary things to people that have been born out of legend. These are legends that developed over time based on old superstitions and fears that are based in things that were at some point real threats to us. Like the idea of a blood-sucking vampire or like thing that takes things in the night is very scary to human beings. We have a fundamental built-in. It's just like making a movie about spiders. Like, we're all scared of spiders. Like, we're all scared. We all have a fundamental fear of the body that still looks alive that we have to, seeing a dead body and like recognizing that's humanity, that's a human, like that fear response that comes along with like, what if it's not dead? Like, or what if somebody like they want to avenge their death in some way because they still look like an intact human being? What if that person comes back to life and they're pissed? Like these are really fundamental, like from when we were, living in caves, living in the savannah kind of stuff. And I just don't know that those are things that you can build enough complexity into to really make a compelling universe, like you're saying. And I know that's kind of like, maybe that's underestimating what modern writers and directors can do, but I really think there is such a fundamental core component to those that speak for themselves. Like, yes, Dracula is scary. Like that, there's a reason that it's scary. It hits something primal and strange in me, just like, something coming back from the dead does. Just like a werewolf, a person that's part ant, part beast, and loses control because of disease, or like all those sort of things, like these superstitions that are built into us culturally. I just don't know if you can make that more interesting and scary because it's already hitting to the core a little bit. Now, like Transformers, like we don't have a shared cultural fear of robots from another planet. Like we don't, so like we can build stuff around that to create interesting stuff. I don't know, I'm rambling, but I hope I get the point across there.
No, I agree. To me, it's as much that, but it's also that Dracula is from 100 years ago. It's what was scary then. The Wolfman is from many, many years ago. And how do you modernize these things to make them scary for today? You look at the creepypasta stuff, and it's creations of horror that relate to a modern society. It's things in rural areas as opposed to things that were like out in the woods, or the creepy things out in the moors in Ireland and stuff like that. You're not going to get somebody to be afraid of Nessie, the Loch Ness monster. But if you find a way to modernize the Dracula mythos, instead of making him this old romantic figure from centuries ago, and you do something like Fright Night, it at least hits people in a place where they live now. If you create horror stories that relate to, it's weird to me that people are doing movies about Ouija boards, because Ouija boards say Milton Bradley on them. I don't understand why you're afraid of something that's made by the same people who do Monopoly. But telling people to be afraid of social media and stuff, as dumb as those movies are to me, because I am from a different generation, I understand why that's something that's easily connected to by younger people today, because that is where they spend all their time. And there is sort of an inherent scariness to being online and sharing everything about yourself, and suddenly having that information get exposed to the people that you didn't want to know about it.
Yeah.
So I can understand a modern mythology, then, as opposed to like, I'm supposed to be afraid that you brought something back to life and it stomps around in big boots. Who gives a shit? What is the creature of the Black Lagoon to me? Where's the Black Lagoon? I live in San Francisco and I'm surrounded by fucking hills. That thing ain't gonna get anywhere.
The good point of note here that the Black Lagoon is a club in San Francisco.
Right.
you can go there tonight if you wanted to, but yeah, no, that's well said. And if honestly, when you look at our generation, even I guess spanning the three of us, really look at the Scream movies. Look how successful those were. And and they might have seemed silly to the previous generation, but they were successful because the idea was there's a killer among you. Like somebody among you can be harboring such a grudge. It's almost like the Scooby-Doo. They're like Scooby-Doo movies, right? Like there's somebody that's been wronged and we completely forgot why they were wronged so bad, but they're going to exact revenge on us until they're unmasked and we find out who they were. And they're among us. They're in your social circle. There's somebody that so I guess that's in and of itself, maybe that's a sign of the times kind of movie. And maybe a lot of the newer stuff that involves social media and, live streaming and stuff, the kind of movies that you see that involve that now, maybe that's really scary to some people now. Maybe that does matter. And I really like your point about like we're much more urbanized and we can explain things away. Explaining something away doesn't mean it can't be entertaining, but horror movies are special because they work on a primal response. They work on a fear or horror or terror response. They work on making you nervous or anxious or scared. And we've not, like, I've read studies now where they, can partially reanimate tissue, like chemically or electrically. Like, that's not a shock to me. Like, it's not like, oh, get that, but it's like, it's going to be a lump of something that big in a petri dish. Like, I understand how that works on a biological level, or like, we understand now that it's physiologically impossible for somebody to subsist on blood, to drink the blood of other people. Like, it's not going to work that way. Like, we know, but like 300 years ago, they didn't know that. Most people were uneducated, half drunk, and half starved most of the time. And, they lived in places where, there wasn't running water and there wasn't light. And those superstitions about horror, about those things, those archetypal horror monsters exist because it was safer to be scared of those things than not. It was safer to not, if you live in, a town east of the mountains in, where's Transylvania? But I can't remember off the top of my head. Like, if you live in Transylvania and you live near the woods, it's better to not go out at night.
Right.
It's safer to believe that there are monsters that are going to get you. Or if you can teach somebody, stay away from wolves and like animals like that, don't get bitten because you may turn into a bloodthirsty monster, which probably kept you from getting rabies, which is probably what all that comes from. So there's a reason that stuff works. And I guess maybe it's just that everything's boring because we understand it now. And like, we've explained away the primal fears for stuff. So it's a big challenge. I guess at the end of the day, it's a big challenge for a studio like Universal or somebody to say like, hey, how do I make a mummy interesting? Because nobody has like tried to unearth a mummy in Egypt for 100 years now. So how do I make that scary? I don't know.
Transylvania's in Romania.
Thank you. See, dropping knowledge.
I Googled it.
Yeah, well, no shame in a little Google action.
I'd rather be right than wrong.
Yeah, it's what a weird thing now though, that what a conversation starter and stopper it can be, right? Being able to Google and talk about stuff. I can't remember who said it. I'm totally shoplifting it, but the idea that like, how did he put this story? It was like, it used to be like you would ask somebody like, hey, where was Tom Petty born? And you would both go, I don't know. Like, I have no idea where Tom Petty was born. And then you just be okay with that. And once in a while it would come up in conversation or something. And like, everybody be like, oh, I don't really know. That's interesting, huh? But one day, like you're at a party or something, and you joke about the time that you and your buddy didn't know where Tom Petty was born, and this girl knows where he was born, like Missouri or whatever. Mm-hmm. She knows it, and then you start dating and getting married. That's how like you used to meet people and get together. Like we kind of lack that now, because now that first conversation between me and you was like, hey, where's Tom Petty born? Click, click, click. Oh, it's Missouri.
Yeah, there's like no opportunity to be wrong or there to be a conversation about something, and like the ability to be that guy that knows everything. Like, we had a friend in high school who was very, very knowledgeable with music, the history of music, this band, that band, anything, whatever. And my dad is very, very big into music, too. So in high school, like, we would it was, like, cool to see my buddy and my dad, like, try and see who could get the most, music trivia correct. It's like, now, that doesn't fucking exist, because I can just pull my phone out, and whatever question you have, I can get the answer to. And
yeah, it changes conversation for sure. And we have a Google Home in our kitchen. The hey Google, blah, 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 like we have one of those now. My kids love it, and a lot of times we'll have conversations at the dinner table where we're like, I don't know about that, and they'll start to default to doing that. And I find myself being the old fuddy-duddy. I'm like, no, let's just talk about it. Yeah. Let's just figure it out. Let's go back and let's let mommy and daddy rack their old brains and figure it out. And I think not to get all parental, but I think the big struggle for us with kids is going to be teaching them to be literate with technology and able to use it, but not completely dependent on it, and not even just dependent, to enjoy not knowing.
Right.
To enjoy like not having access.
If you don't have the answer that promotes the desire to learn more, the pursuit of knowledge.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I remember going to school, high school, and you had to like learn how to write papers. You had to learn how to write English correctly. Now, Microsoft Word will just tell me when I spelled something wrong. It'll tell me if it's grammatically incorrect, and it will just fix it. Like there's
don't you kind of hate it though?
I do.
Like I kind of hate it. I'm sure people love that now, but I kind of hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of sucks. It appears we lost Corey, so it's just you and I for the end. And I gotta wrap this up anyways. I gotta take my wife out to dinner for our wedding anniversary. Maybe it's a blessing.
Nice. Gainesville, Florida, by the way. Tom Petty's born in Gainesville, Florida.
Oh, I did not know that.
Continue.
Did you Google it or
See, there you go. I did Google it.
Okay. I thought about it, and I'm like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of this conversation.
Oh, I'm totally fine being a hypocrite. Don't worry.
Oh, I do it all the time. Literally do it all the time. But usually,
good.
Like you said, you have that moment where you're like, well, let's try and figure this one out. Like usually, I will sit down and like try and figure it out, and then if there's a point where it's like, fuck it, I quit. That's when I'll go to the Google. But that's what it's there for.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm okay with being wrong, and I'm okay with sucking at things for a while. But dude, you said it right. There's a big temptation to be the guy that knows it all. Mm-hmm. And there's a big temptation. Like dudes have that really bad. Like we really have the want to be the guy that knows what he's talking about thing. And it's really tempting. But I guess I've discovered in old age, and like that's why I really like doing this podcast with you guys, and I like doing these sort of things, is I like to step into areas where I'm not an expert. Yeah. And I like to just talk to people that are and be able to say, I don't fucking know.
But that's the thing. We're not experts either. We're just two
that's true.
Normal guys that are willing to fucking put our ideas out there and be told we're wrong. I don't claim.
Well, I mean, passion can take the place for the memorizing a lot. And just like you said, like the desire to learn, like the takeaway for me is this, like just from talking with you and Corey, there's so many things I can just now, I'll think about more, or I may even Google, who knows? I may read those things. I may find them, I may find those things and read about them. And that, I mean, like what, an hour and a half of conversation leads to me like expanding my horizons a little bit. And that's way more valuable, man. Mm-hmm. That's super valuable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's like, you have done this twice now. We do this fucking weekly, a lot of times with other people. So it's like, it's just this deep rabbit hole of sadness and shame.
Well, that's the fun part. That's why I started doing the podcast too, man, is like just having regular structured conversations outside of your comfort zone. How cool is that? Doesn't happen very much, because usually I'm talking to an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 15-month-old, and I pretty much know everything they know already. So, and more, hopefully. But yeah, so now I get the chance to like talk to other grown-ups about stuff in a structured way, where I get to be like, I'm a dumb, and I didn't know it.
Where you're smart, I'm dumb, and where you're dumb, I'm smart. It's the whole basis for like friendships and relationships.
It is, right? Complimentary.
Did we even talk about the movie?
A little.
5 minutes.
A little. We didn't rate it yet. We
do have to rate it, and then I got to read this ridiculous outro, and then I got to put real pants on.
Don't rush on the pants thing.
I can't really go out in public without real pants on.
I don't know, if you had courage, you could.
All right. I feel like you just dared me to wear sweatpants out in public to like a restaurant.
I mean, look, man. I feel like it's in your heart already. I feel like you're just putting it on me. I feel like you're making it my fault. I feel like you really want to in your heart.
So if I wear sweatpants in public and someone's like, "Sir, you can't be wearing sweatpants," I'll be like, "But Mike Beech said I could, as long as I believe."
I don't know if you've heard, but he is a published author.
Yeah, he's an author. You're gonna want to keep an eye out. That motherfucker's gonna be on the New York sellers, best sellers. Excuse me.
And he also made these sweatpants, sir.
I haven't broken down and bought hate sweatpants yet because I don't like the cuffs.
Oh, get the joggers, man. You gotta go joggers.
I don't like the cuff. Like I don't like the elastic cuff on my ankles.
You know what is pretty cool? You cut them into shorts. Matt did that with a pair of his. I'm about to do it with mine. Cut them to a 7-inch seam. They actually make pretty killer shorts. And you're a Minnesotan. I'm sure like sweatpants shorts are you're no stranger to those.
Yeah, Wisconsin, please.
Did I say Minnesotan? I don't know. They're all the same up there, right?
Fucking correct.
Sorry, it's all northern states with funny. You all call accents. Soda. You all call soda pop up there. So one of those states.
I don't. I call it soda.
You do? Are you originally from Wisconsin?
Yeah. Born and raised.
I thought you guys were a pop.
No. I think Illinois is. Maybe it is. I don't know. I've always said soda.
Northern Ohio was PoP when I lived there. They're PoP.
That sounds about right.
PoP.
So it was really funny. I'm gonna make fun of my wife real quick before I do nice things, but
Celebrate your love for her. Yes.
we were standing like in our closet talking about something, and she kept saying the word gross. And like I know I do it a little bit, and she's just like, it's so gross, and I'm like, oh my god, you sound so bad right now. She's like, what? It's gross. Yeah. It's
well, it's gross. Yeah.
yeah. I know there's a couple words that when I say them, I'm like, god damn, I sound like that guy. Gross being one.
You don't have a lot of that accent, man. But you don't have a lot of that Northerners.
But there are bits and pieces, and I had my dad's mom before she passed away. When she would talk, like everything, it was like up north. It was very
up north. Yeah.
Up north or no?
I mean,
I'm
Texan, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So when I landscaped,
no, I'm Texan, so I'm kind of the same thing. I'll hear words come out once in a while. It's like, sorry.
Yeah.
What I gotta say is so interesting.
When I landscaped, we'd always have this joke about going to get a soda. Are you gonna go get a soda or no? Because the or no is big around here. Like, you gonna do that or no? Or
nice. I'll have to remember that.
Right quick. You gonna do just go do that there right quick? Have you seen?
Oh yeah, down here
yet?
No, I haven't.
Some like comedian does like these minute-long YouTube videos called Manitowoc Minute, making fun of the way people live. And Manitowoc is the first city like north of Sheboygan where I grew up. So
okay,
it's even funnier. Plus, the whole Stephen Avery murdered that lady in there. It's that guy.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good for a laugh.
Did you watch Making a Murderer?
I watched 2 episodes of it.
Oh, okay, so do you ever plan on finishing it? I'm not gonna like ruin it. You know what happened, but
yeah, no, I didn't watch the rest of it.
All right, so there's the
totally
the where they hold
totally fucking did it.
The kid. I'm sure he did. I used to deliver chicken wings while he was being held there. To
nice.
The juvenile correction facility. It was kind of weird when I saw that. And I was like, oh, that's fucked up. All right, let's fucking rate this so I can go.
All right.
So
who goes first?
You have to go first. You're the esteemed guest. So 0 to 5, and you can give a brief explanation, or don't. I don't really care anymore.
Okay, man. God, so nihilistic over there. I am going to give. I'm going to give it a 3, which is, like, can we do halves?
Yeah.
Is that allowed?
You can do half and quarter.
Okay. Whew, shit. I'm going to go 3.5. It's just there. It's impossible for me to separate my enjoyment of a film from the reverence for Mel Brooks and how entertaining I find that style of humor, especially as a younger man, and how much that shaped my rhythm and timing of humor, like it did everybody else's our age. I think what pushes it up and easily into the upper half is that, like I said, his selection for shots is amazing. There's unapologetic working for the joke. I love that. I love the unapologetic nature of it. I love that it's not played with any hint of sarcasm or irony. It's played for the jokes. Peter Boyle was fantastic in that, like, he was playing the most ridiculous possible thing in that movie, but there was full commitment to it, and I love it. I love that part of it. I mean, the only thing that's going to knock it down for me is just that it's loose on story. It's not like, we know the story. It's a classic story, and he was kind of playing with the story more than telling the story. And it just kind of, it brings you in and out of it that much. It's not I think you were saying, like, it's not a movie like I'm going to sit and watch intently and like unwrap, or like I'm going to like, it's not going to draw you in. You're going to be able to watch it, get a laugh, and not be too connected to it. That's Mel Brooks in general. And then there's no big theme. So yeah, I mean, 3.5. I'd say I'm more than happy walking away with that.
Yeah, I'm going to say a lot less words than that. I gave it a 3. I like that it's just kind of dumb humor, that it exists for the sole purpose of being funny, and I don't have to really invest a bunch into it. You can just kind of put it on and it take it at face value. But that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted.
And there's a place for that, right? There's always a place for that in entertainment. Everything doesn't have to be challenging.
Nope, I agree. Alrighty. You can contact us by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966. You can email us at pot@gncast.com. You can leave a message on the website. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Podcast although we never update Instagram. Very seldomly Facebook or Twitter. We're pretty much terrible at all social media. You can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. Any of your favorite podcatchers, leave us feedback, please, so I don't have to listen to Corey complain about it. All subscription options and links can be found at gncast.com/subscribe, and you can follow the entire network under the Galactic Network. Michael Beech, where can people find you and everything you do?
Well, first and foremost, you can find my company, my love, at thehate.com, HVIII.com. We know all about that. You can find me on Instagram at Beech with 9 E's, BEEEEEEEECH. And same on Twitter. Those are the primary places to find me. I don't do the Snapchats. I don't do the Facebooks. I don't do any of that, but you can find me in those places and hit me up. And also, I mean, look, check out the Camo and Hooks podcast. We're happy to be friends of this show. We're very thrilled about that. We consider it an honor to even be mentioned. Man. So, look at that podcast. Listen to it after you listen to Podcast of Terror. You have to listen to Podcast of Terror first, and then if you have time, you can listen to ours.
After 3 hours of listening to Corey and I tell dick jokes, check out Camo and Hooks.
Where we will tell dick jokes for 15 minutes.
And also, as you mentioned, Matt has a podcast called So. I'm still waiting for an ad from him for that one, so that may never happen.
Matthew.
I know. He said he would do it next week, which was 2 weeks ago.
That guy. Yeah. I'm going to give him a stern talking to.
Yeah, whatever.
Not really.
Yeah, don't waste his time.
Just saying it to make you feel better. I'm sorry.
Don't.
I'm a liar.
I got drunk and texted him a bunch last night, and I'm like, oh man, I did it again. But
he's not an ex, man. or is he? I don't want to speak out of turn. I mean,
no, I wouldn't be upset if he was my ex-boyfriend.
Things got crazy in Ohio, bro.
Are you going to the Arnold this year?
Yeah, we'll be doing it again, man. We'll be at the Arnold in the exact same spot next to Donuts and Deadlifts. So it'll be a good time.
All right, cool. I'll try and eat less pre-workouts before I see you. Ain't gonna happen.
You should eat more.
I'm going to double my pre-workout intake before I see you, so that I'm sweating and shaky.
You're in the land of free samples, man. Just load up until your heart stops.
The first year I went, I was like, ooh, let's not get out of control here. And the next year I was like, fuck it, take it all. I'll sift through it later.
All the cancers.
Yeah, pretty much. You can find Corey at Don't Ask Comics, and his wife does art. I don't know which one he wanted to push this week, but you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and Untapped at Matt the Lifeguard. So that's gonna do it. Next week we have Glenn Rubenstein coming back, which is a guy that you should talk to about ads on your podcast.
Nice.
We're gonna talk about the movie Green Room, which Matt actually brought up. I can't get away from you two. Everything comes full circle to you two assholes.
Big gravity.
Yeah, there are worse things in life. But that's going to do it for another episode of the Podcast Air. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Stay scary, everybody.